Hello, Elliot. Good evening.
Good evening, Derek.
How are you?
I'm fine. How is the weather today over that side?
No, it was okay. It
Okay, good.
was fine. How was it there?
No, it was a lovely day. Good weather.
Very good.
Yeah.
Right. So today we are talking about the post stay-away analysis, in which we're looking at what happened today as regards the call for a stay-away. This is not the first time a stay-away has been called, so perhaps we want to compare uh, the stairway today and the other stairways that have happened in the recent past. I'm with Elliot Pfebve in the on the YouTube live. We're broadcasting across the world. Viewers are welcome to ask questions. And in the last, I think after about 15-20 minutes, if some people want to join, we can invite them to join in as well. So, Elliot, welcome. And what was the stairway about, and who called the stairway?
Yeah, the stay-away was called in by civic groups. To be very specific, these groups included hashtag Tajamuka, hashtag this flag. They were also supported by the mainstream political parties, including MDC and People First, and also including the war veterans. So yes, so those were the groups, but this was civic group-led stay away.
Oh, that's and how do you think? I mean, from what you've heard from across the country, how has it been? Was there a response to the stairway?
I think you need to answer that question in relation to the previous stayaways, because this was not the first stayaway. We had the first stayaway on the 6th of July, which was headed by Zimbabweans, I could say across the country. Then we had another stayaway, which was on the 13th and 14th of July. Not as much successful as the previous one. And then, yes, today's stay away was less heated than the previous one. So if you look at the success by the number of shops and businesses that were shut, you then it is suffice to say, yes, this one was not as successful as the two previous ones.
Why do you think, or why do you suppose that may be the case?
I think there are three scenarios to that. The first one is, I mean, our unemployment rate in Zimbabwe is over 95%, and most of the people are self-employed. And I have to remind the viewers that Zimbabwe is a vendor economy. By staying away, they are staying away from their own businesses and staying away from their own incomes. And again, it's end of the month. People need to pay bills. I think we heard that coming from various people. So that could have also had an impact in terms of the numbers. Again, the second one has been also very corroborated across the country, and that there have been some intimidation across the board by the security sectors and also some PF militias in terms of intimidating the businesses, the workers. And I think if you look at the sort of economy in Zimbabwe, is that most of the people were allocated stores or stands by the local government. And the local government in Zimbabwe, the government and the ZANU-PF, in theory, although they are different, they are three different bodies, but ZANU-PF would want you to believe that ZANU-PF is the government and the local government is ZANU-PF. So ZANU-PF have been threatening the businesses that they would repossess their stands, their businesses, if they join in the stay away and shut down, or they would destroy the properties. I mean, that is, it's a valid fear because ZANU-PF have done that before. So yes, there were corroborated incidents across the country where the security sector were actually intimidating various business sectors. So that also could have contributed. And the third one would be, again, we have to accept that they've been diminishing appetite for stayaways and shut down by Zimbabweans. By accepting, it means then we have to go on the drawing table and say, okay, what really can work, or what strategies can we bring in that actually can align with the current economic climate in Zimbabwe, given that most of the people are unemployed. So yes, if you look on the across the board, those three scenarios sort of corroborate and are also intertwined, and we need to look at this, especially the problem with those three scenarios in mind.
Right. I was thinking, if you look at the government itself, do you think that they are really, by the stayaways, do you think the pressure is getting to the government? Do they care?
I think the stayaway alone, probably, if you look at ZANU-PF, is a very complicated animal. After 36 years in power, they are so much entrenched. So do you want to include, yes, stayaways are good as a way to raise the bar of publicity. But you also need to argument that with demonstrations, with diplomacy, and also the political will. And I think this is where you have the civic groups argumenting the work of the political parties. Because at the end of the day, it is the end game is the political parties need to demonstrate their will to change the status quo in terms of taking over the government in a free and fair elections, and also the political parties have got the economic policies to change around the economy. So yes, demonstrations are one thing, but the end game is that there must be a political settlement. So just stayaways alone are not enough to scare ZANU-PF. Yes, they've raised the bar, but again, what has made an effect is actually both the demonstrations and the stayaway.
But some people are saying the stayaways, the demonstrations, they are saying these things are localized only to Harare, and the rest of the country, maybe there was something in Bulawayo, but apart from that, and apart from the demonstrations which has been held by the MDC in Mutare, the stairways, everything seems to be happening only in Harare. And could that have an impact?
Well, if you look at the stayaway on the 6th of July, it was across the board in all cities, including small towns. So yes, in that regard, it was successful. But then if you look at it in terms of the demonstrations, yes, as you've alluded to, MDC had demonstration in Harare, Bulawayo, Masvingo, and also in Mutare. So these have been rolling demonstrations across the country. Yes, of course, we need also to reach out to small towns and including growth points. And I think that is coming, is in the pipeline in terms of the MDC strategy. They are right to say that the stay-away and demonstrations have been sort of contained within Harare and not being strategized across the entire country. Yes, they are right that way. But I think if you look at this Friday, we've got NERA. Let me just remind our viewers that we've got NERA demonstration again this Friday, because the one last Friday, although was authorized by the higher court, but it was sort of late in the afternoon, and it didn't achieve the intended consequence as planned by the over 18 political parties. So we are saying this demonstration, yes, it's going to be in Harare, but it's also going to be, this is not going to be the last NERA demonstration. There are lined up demonstrations for NERA across the entire country. So yes, people need to keep a track on the, again, communications from their political parties, because these are over 18 political parties, as to which city and which town will be the next demonstration. And yes, they are coming, and indeed, coming they are.
What about in terms of violence? Was there any incidences today of violence?
Not that I've come across. I think because most people did report for work, and yes, I have to accept that there are people who didn't go to work in support of the core, which is again, we have to thank them for being very cooperative. Yes, there were police officers deployed in the streets, but there wasn't any violence reported for today now.
What about in terms of the economic impact? Could we measure that? I mean, how much of an impact is it having on the economy? Because we know that it's a vendor economy. So ultimately, it is the vendors themselves who are affected by stay away. Is that the reason why, for example, there's been a falling support for stayaways?
Not really. There is, of course, an economic impact to the government. Mind you, we saw all commercial banks closing on the 6th of July last month. We saw big companies closing as well. And again, it means if the revenue base of those companies goes down, it therefore also means that the corporate tax goes down. So the revenue to the government also will be impacted in that regard. Yes, generally from the population point of view, because most of the people are vendors, it tended to hit them on their pockets, and not necessarily from a government perspective. But yes, of course, the government will be affected.
Right. I was thinking, in terms of the government itself, it looks like they don't really respond, do they, to this? Do they think they are of no consequence? Because there's not really, they don't call a press conference to address what has been happening. They are not talking to the people who are airing their grievances. It's a democratic country, but are we really practicing that democracy?
I mean, if you look at Zimbabwe, it's not surprising with the ZANU-PF, although they, on paper, they say there's freedom of speech, but in reality, there is no freedom after the speech. And again, because ZANU-PF itself has been in denial that it has failed the people of Zimbabwe, and it has been in denial of the current economic meltdown. And by not commenting at all, to them, they are looking as if it's business as usual. But we know it's not business as usual if you can't pay your civil servants. And it's not business as usual if you can't even manage your budgets. And it's not business as usual if you can't deliver and service essential services across the entire country. So yes, that's the type of government, and that's why we are here. If it was a responsible government, then of course you would find that the government would actually take heed of what the citizens are saying and use some of the strategies and suggestions that we are putting across to the government. But they do not have any moral status or will to change course. They would rather sink with the entire economy and the whole country. So yes, this is where we are. So don't expect any comment from ZANU-PF.
And also, why are we having stairways and why are we having all these disturbances? Have we failed to go through channels, for example, such as the parliamentary, talking to our members of parliament? Is that something which Zimbabweans have not been allowed or which they find difficult to do?
I think you find in terms of, firstly, we started with the dialogue of, MDC and other political parties. Firstly, we tried dialogue, and dialogue didn't work. I mean, we have SADC, for example, and the African Union had to intervene in the 2008 when there was anarchy, and when the same government rigged the elections and refused to budge. So we have been there before, and we have actually followed a path of peace in terms of dialogue, and nothing has happened. And when dialogue doesn't work, the next thing is you use confrontation. And this is where we are. This is why we've got demonstrations. This is why we are, civic organization is augmenting the demonstrations with also stairways. And this is the language that Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF can understand. And this is why we are saying the same strategy must continue. Yes, we must also double our effort and also come to the drawing table, and especially in terms of the stairway, to see how best we can use those civic fissures, groups, to advance the same cause.
What is your advice to the people of Zimbabwe and the government?
I think firstly to the people of Zimbabwe is to say, yes, some people might look at today and say the citizens' voice doesn't work and stairways doesn't work, but they must understand that the stairways were just a step along a journey. So we have got a journey, and it was to be expected of a party that have been in power for over 36 years, that a single stairway or a series of stairways alone could not move Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF. But let me also hasten to say to the people of Zimbabwe that we must continue relentlessly to fight for what is ours. And if you look at it, the elders, the pressure that the elders are putting on SADC would not have been realized if we Zimbabweans have not gone to the streets. Also, the pressure from the United Nations. For your own information, the United Nations spokesperson, Stefani Dujarric, who is the spokesperson for Ban Ki-moon, have also voiced their concern of what is currently happening in Zimbabwe, including the EU and UK. Now, pressure
about the African Union?
The African Union has not yet pronounced anything, which is very worrying. But it is to be expected. We know these with the African Union. There's also there's always this approach where they don't want to be seen to be interfering in an individual member states. In other words, they are, in most cases, they are in solidarity with the leadership, other than the solidarity with the population of that country. And this is why within Africa we've got all these problems. So yes, but if you look at from globally, you can see the pressure mounting on ZANU-PF and Robert Mugabe. And this could not have been the case if we Zimbabweans have not taken the initiative. This struggle can only be achieved by Zimbabweans, and we must continue, and victory is on our side. Now, to ZANU-PF, my advice to ZANU-PF is that Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF, they've got a choice. They've got a choice to leave office peacefully through handing power to a transition process, or to remain entrenched and wait for the wrath of the people of Zimbabwe. Because what is clear is that Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF have failed, and there is nowhere, I repeat, nowhere that they can turn around the economy, that they can turn around the fortunes for Zimbabweans. No country, World Bank or IMF, had any faith in Robert Mugabe as the president of Zimbabwe, or ZANU-PF as a ruling party. So we are not going to change any course for as long as ZANU-PF is in power, for as long as Robert Mugabe is in power. So all what we are saying is we are calling for ZANU-PF to do an honorable thing, to accept that they failed, heed the cause by Zimbabweans, citizens, and political parties for the benefit of everybody, including ZANU-PF.
But some people are saying that ZANU-PF was voted into power, and the only time you can remove them is in 2018.
Well, those people who are pronouncing that type of advance, it's probable they don't follow politics at all. ZANU-PF was not voted into power in 2013. We know that there was no coup. They rigged the elections, but they forgot to rig the economy. And we made it very clear in 2013 that as much as you've rigged the elections, you would not rig the economy. And this is exactly what MDC has always been saying. So they didn't win the elections. They rigged the elections. And all what we are saying is we don't want to reach 2018 with this government, because what we know very well is that they've already put their machinery. They've got the money that they've looted. This is why the country is now dry. They've looted so much money, and they can buy foreign experts to rig the elections on their behalf. We've seen that with the Nikov in 2013. And there's all evidence that they are doing the same. So what we are saying is that we must not allow ZANU-PF to run the elections. ZEC, for that matter, for your own information, is a stooge of ZANU-PF. And it's stuffed with the CIOs, it's stuffed with militias, it's stuffed with people with personal interest, and their personal interest is to maintain ZANU-PF at all costs, and we cannot have that. So all what we are saying is, let's have a national transition authority, which is neutral, which will then align the electoral laws in line with the Constitution of 2013. Only then can we have free and fair elections for every political party. If ZANU-PF want to contest on a freely basis, then they can. But ZANU-PF cannot be trusted to run any election. So that is the message to ZANU-PF and to people out there.
So some people are also saying that the MDC and other political parties are wasting time with these sideshows. While ZANU-PF is preparing for elections, they are registering people as we speak, some people are saying. And when it comes to 2018, we'll cry Nikuv again.
Well, look, they're right that ZANU-PF is registering people. We know that. And that's exactly what I was saying, that the rigging exercise is already started. Actually, for your own information, it did start immediately after the elections, 2013. Instead of concentrating on turning around the economy, on bringing prosperity to the people of Zimbabwe, bringing food on the table of the people of Zimbabwe. After rigging the elections, all they were doing is to concentrate on consolidating power for another 5 years, another 10 years. But all what we are saying is, yes, I mean, unfortunately, we as the opposition parties are not part of the registration exercise, because that is done by Tobayo Amdede as the Registrar General. And that is purely a ZANU-PF structure. But all what we are saying is, we want Zimbabweans to understand that this anger by citizens is basically because we have lost trust of a ZANU-PF-led government running an election. And that must be the objective for every demonstration. That must be objective, to say, look, we are not waiting for 2018. ZANU-PF might say we'll have free and fair elections 2018. We don't trust them. We want a transitional process, because if you look at NERA, the demands for NERA is electoral reform. We are not demanding that the government write a new constitution. No, we are saying the new constitution allows electoral reforms that is free and fair. Let align those laws. And ZANU-PF is not interested in doing that. And they've no moral will to do it. So what we are saying is, we should confront ZANU-PF using the language that they understand better, until they yield to a transitional process where those laws are aligned, where all political parties are given equal status to campaign freely. That's all what we are demanding for. And if they want, yes, they can continue registering people, they can continue rigging the elections, but we are not going to allow them to even run the elections. And that should be very clear. We know in 2013, there were 5.5 million registered voters, and they printed 8.7 million ballot papers. And ZEC admitted that. And it's actually on their tally. You can actually check on all the records from ZEC. You'll find they printed 8.7 million ballots.
And how many were actually said to have voted?
About 3.8, nearly 4 million. There've never been more than 5 million people voting in Zimbabwe, never ever. So why would you print 8.7 million? More than the population, the voting age population. So you can see the sinister motive of ZANU-PF.
I remember some people telling me that their parents who already passed away are still voting.
Oh, indeed. I mean, I saw it in Bindura. There were actually queues which never diminished from morning to about midnight. They were supposed to, the polling was supposed to close at 7 p.m. But the way the electoral laws is defined is that if you are already in the queue, then you'll be allowed to vote. It doesn't matter whether it will be up to 12 midnight. And these people, they were just moving them around. And we made also a mistake that although you can only vote within your ward, that's according to the current electoral laws. But there's also a clause to say, if you have got a slip to show that you are a registered voter, even if you don't appear on the electoral roll, you're allowed to vote. So ZANU-PF printed all these books, and they were just tearing the pages and going from one ward to another, from one constituency to another. That's why they printed over 8.7 million ballots.
I know that you've been a candidate, including the last election, you were a candidate in Bindura. What was your experience? And if the electoral laws are aligned, how will that change, the way that the election is handled?
I think it's not only the alignment of the electoral laws. It's the body that runs the elections. Because that's where the problem is. Because first of all, before that body can run the elections, it needs to audit that the registration process was done within the framework of the law, that the number registered within that particular constituency, they tally with the delimitation commission's population. We've seen with Zimbabwe, where the delimitation might say there are 35,000 people, and then on the voting day, there are 48,000 people. We've seen that. So it's not about the laws, it's about the will to make sure that you respect the rule, the electoral laws, and the body that policies them is transparent. And this is where we have a problem with ZEC. So yes, if you ask me in terms of a comparison with the previous elections, the 2018 was relatively peaceful. But there was a reason to that. It's because they'd already done the rigging mechanism. And meanwhile, they had no need to use violence. So each election, they're coming up with a totally new strategy because they own the entire process. Robert Mugabe registered the new voters. Okay, they do the registration process. They do the printing of the voters roll. Although we were 2018, there was no voters roll to talk about until on the day. They also manage the voting process on the day. They also manage the announcing. So the counting, announcing, all that is done by Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF. And the opposition parties are at the mercy of being onlookers of the very process that they're supposed to be part and parcel of. And we are saying that that cannot be the case. The constitution, the new constitution is very clear on that. But unfortunately, ZANU-PF have been cherry picking which provisions of the constitution they can use. The rest, pretending that they don't have the money or the funding realign the laws. So yes, that's where the problem is.
Okay. What are your closing remarks in terms of the stay away that has taken place today?
My closing remarks on the stay away is that yes, this stay away, maybe we have to accept that fewer people stayed away. The majority of the people did go to report for work, and businesses did open. The timing, again, this could, as I said earlier on, this could be as a result of timing, being end of the month, and people are trying to find, mind you, the employers have also been giving an excuse of not paying because there's no cash in Zimbabwe. And they can, if employees don't turn up for work, that's on the last day of the month, they can give it an excuse for not paying them.
And so, teachers on holiday?
Sorry?
And teachers are also on holiday?
Yes, and teachers are also on holiday. So yes, I think the timing also in terms of, I can't say that the stayaways are not effective, but I'm not advocating stayaways as a standalone sharp instrument to deal with Robert Mugabe's Pfebve. It has to be augmented by demonstrations, and it has to be a united front, civic groups and political parties together. So yes, in terms of timing, we need better timing for stayaways, and they must continue with a new strategy, of course.
Okay, thank you very much, Elliot Pfebve. We've been talking about the stay away and spilling also into other forms of putting pressure on the government, the difficulties that the opposition is facing, the fact that ZANU-PF, the political party, and the Zimbabwe government, there's a thin line, and they've always used the state apparatus for their, to consolidate their own political power. Any closing statement for the viewers?
I think I would like to thank all our viewers at the moment, and there will be more live shows as we deliberate on social, political, and economic issues about our country. And we welcome your views, and also your contributions. Thank you very much. Until we meet again in the next episode, my pleasure.
Maybe just to tell them how they can get in touch.
Yes, they can follow me on YouTube, either by searching using Elliot Pfebve or just Pfebve. They can also follow me on my blog, which is pfebve.blogspot.co.uk. They can also follow me on Twitter at Pfebve. They can also follow me on Facebook, or just Google me.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'm Derek Tafuma. I'm reachable on derektafuma.com, hashtag AskDerekTafuma. We will see you again in the next video, which is in the next couple of days. Thank you again so much for watching. We were not able to see the comments as we were talking today, but we'll go through them. If there is any that need to be answered, we can answer them in the next video. Thank you very much. We're going to stop the broadcasting now.